Thank you, Uma, and thank you, Mahua. Really happy to be with you ladies today. Such an awesome gathering of amazing, talented women. So this is a privilege for me to be in your midst. Yeah, and today I want to take you through some, habits or best practices for women with which you can further your executive career and make strides in your leadership journey. So let's start. Let me just share my screen first of all. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the topic for today, as you know, is executive roles for women. Are you guys, are we ready? Are you guys ready? Let's talk about success principles. Probably some of them you're already practicing, but let's just take an inventory and have a discussion.
So, Meera, do you want to run the poll now? Just let us know when you want to do it.
Sorry, what do you mean?
The poll, do you want to run it now?
Yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Uma. Yes, so before we get started, ladies, I would love to hear from you which stage of your career you're in. So Uma's put up a poll here. If you could just indicate whether you're in your early career, you're in your mid-management, senior management, or executive leadership, we would love to know. So while you put those responses up, I'll just move on with the presentation. Shall I do that, Uma? The logistics, it's fine.
Mahua, are you putting on the poll?
Yeah, it's all good. Continue, Meera.
Can I continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Close that window. All right. But before I launch into the content for today, I want to share a story, Joanna's story. So that was back in 2013 when I was in Poland, and I had recently joined as a senior supply chain manager in Procter and Gamble. I had joined the Polish office. There were very few women leaders at that time. And Joanna was a colleague of mine. She was slightly a bit more senior to me in the organization. She had been there for a few years. And luckily we hit it off. We had a great chemistry. We started sharing, our aspirations for leadership, our career aspirations with each other. And over a period of time, I started realizing that Joanna was very frustrated. She is very talented. She's very intelligent. She's up till then, up to like, let's say a mid to senior management, she's made great progress in her career. She had frequent promotions, but somehow things stalled for her. Things were on hold. She was not progressing as much as or as fast as she wanted. So she was doing all the right things. She was, for example, leaning in. She was doing the right things. She was doing all the work and everything. So she started confiding in me her story, her frustration, etc. And since I, as well, aspired for leadership positions, or further along in the, wanted to advance my leadership journey, we became allies. We started becoming buddies in this learning journey. How can we progress our, leadership together, our career journey together? We started reading books. We started exchanging tips with each other. We started looking at role models, right? There were a handful of very senior ladies in the organization who had gone up to the VP level, etc. So we started looking for role models, like I said, books, audios, videos, whatever. We started consuming a lot of content in addition to doing the work that we were doing very well. And initially our conversation centered around the external factors, right? How some bosses, not all, but some bosses were biased against women, or how there is a glass ceiling, how it's difficult for women to progress. But over a period of time, what we realized is some of the most important factors that lay within our control is our own internal mindset, how we approach the situations in our organization, how we approach our career, what we think of ourselves, the confidence and the energy we bring each day to work. We started realizing those were as critical factors, or even more critical factors, than what lies in the external world in terms of, sexism or bias, etc. at work. And we started making small and subtle progress in our journey. We had our mentors or coaches who helped us along the way. And I'm happy to note that Joanna has made a lot of progress, and she's now an executive leader in Procter & Gamble. We are in touch. It's been a friendship for more than 8 years now. And what happened to me? I moved from Procter & Gamble within 2 years. So within knowing Joanna, I moved to Munich and I got a job with Amazon. I did well in the leadership, ranks, etc. But then I decided to pursue my passion for actually understanding the human psyche of, why we do certain things, of leadership, of women leaders, what holds us back from expressing our true potential. So that is my passion. I've turned that into a career, and I use that in my own journey. I'm far from perfect, and this is a daily journey for me, and I help other women as well as a coach for female leaders and organizations. So that was Joanna's story. And why did I share that with you? Is because I wanted to let you know that it's not you alone. If you feel frustrated that your career is not moving fast enough, or you're not sure of the factors there are, this webinar is actually to help you with that, understand those habits or those patterns that you can identify in yourself and you can change, which will be critical factors in your progress. And again, I repeat, I'm gonna focus on the external factors, because once you master that, or once you gain a certain level of knowledge on how you behave in certain situations and what you can change about that, you will automatically come to the external world with more confidence, more presence, and that will only take you forward in your leadership journey. Now, are these only specific to women? No, men as well show some of these habits or have some of these habits, but we see a lot of that in women, or a lot more women have this. Is it only in India or a certain country in the world? No, after working in several countries across the world, I see this as a pattern amongst people, especially women in organizations, talented, intelligent people showcasing such habits, which in a way they get in their own way of progress. I'm looking at my notes so I don't miss anything. And one might think that as you progress in your career and you reach a certain level, let's say senior management or leadership positions or executive positions, these habits go away. No, these are always going to be a part of our psyche. We can weaken some of the not so great habits and strengthen some of the great habits, and always be aware of how we self-sabotage. And by knowing that, that becomes our strength and how a tool, and which we can use to progress ourselves in our career and our confidence. Now, having said that, let me move to the next slide. So the goal for this session, what I want to leave you with is, like I said, strengthen the single biggest lever you have in your success, which is your mindset. And I want some insights to sort of rub off on you and inspire you to have a personal action plan on certain habits or certain good practices that you want to develop in your way of working. Most of all, I want you to feel empowered, energized, and inspired, because each of you who has joined me today, I know, is an ambitious woman, and who has that potential to make great strides in her own life, for her family, and for communities. So I want this to be, that power, the change to come from within this webinar for you to really discover your true potential, or taste that potential and pass the baton forward. So the agenda quickly is, I'll quickly introduce myself very briefly again and dive into the topics, which is the heart of the conversation. We'll have a brief wrap up, after which we'll have a Q&A for about 10 minutes, and I'll share some resources which might be of further help to you. All right, about me, Uma has given me a very nice introduction. So as she said, I've done my schooling, education, etc. in India. I'm a product of the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. After which I worked in India for a few years and then moved to Poland, where I worked predominantly with Procter & Gamble. And then I moved to Germany, where I've worked with Amazon. And over the last few years, I've struck my independent career as a coach for female leaders, actually leaders of all cadres, especially women leaders, because that is my passion area. And as I showed you in my story, I'm experiencing the challenges women face. I have faced it myself. I see that still in myself, and I'm continuously working on it, strengthening that muscle per se. And I'm also experiencing decoding what gets in the way. Now I've been a student or a scientist of these habits. It's easy for me to spot these patterns. It is my passion to help remarkable women around the world grow their leadership potential and reach the executive careers or whichever level or whichever shape or form they want their career to take. It's not just executive careers, but whatever you're passionate about, I want to help you reach that. So that's about me. So now let's get to the habits. What are these habits that get in the way? So because of, because we only have a few minutes for the webinar, it's a 1-hour webinar, I sort of have condensed some of the habits into, a lot of those habits into 3. I've brought the 3 most common habits that I see in women leaders and brought it to you today. Habits that get in the way. First of all is playing too small or not taking credit for the work you do, or not being visible or showing visibility for the work we do. Disease to please. A lot often, we fall into the pattern of needing to please somebody and playing small in that way as well. Perfectionism comes along is another one. We see that a lot often, keeping us from expressing our gifts and waiting for the best time or until everything is ready. So let's dive into the first one, playing too small. This is a multifaceted actually point. Like I said, I've condensed a few points into this. Here again, I'll bring a story. But before that, I want to hear from all of you, as many of you as possible. How many of you are absolutely confident of drawing attention to yourself? So for example, if you've done a great project, how often do you stand up and talk about it? In a way, praise yourself, praise the work you've done, or talk about it confidently. You can use the, there is a reaction button. You can use that. Is it working, Uma?
I don't see any. I see a couple of thumbs ups.
Okay, I don't see any. Probably that's because I'm sharing my screen. I'm able to, I just can't, I do easily. Great, I can't, okay. Working on it. Yes, thank you for your responses, ladies. What I want you to see see here is that you're not alone. A lot of us are like that, and I include myself in that equation as well. And it's been a constant practice, like I said, to really raise your hands up and say, hey, here's my work, I'm good at this, that sort of thing. So let's meet a hypothetical character, Tina. Tina is an amalgamation of a few of my clients who I've met over the years. So I've condensed some of those character traits into this. So okay, that is Tina, our hypothetical character, who is an amalgamation of some of my clients. So typically when I meet her or met her, I actually met one of them yesterday. She's playing too small in her life. Now, what does playing too small mean? She could be physically not taking up space. For example, you might see that when there is a there is a very crowded conference room and Tina is sitting in one of the seats and there are many people coming in, she might actually condense herself or move backwards to make place for other people. Or she might actually use a lot of minimizers or discounters in her conversation. So for example, can I just say this thing? May I just do this thing? I only wanted to say this. Could I please? So, I mean, these are obviously great things, right? Making place for other people or, showing humility. But a lot of times when we do that a little too much, that sort of reduces our credibility, our authority, and our power. And as women, we are, brought up in society to be a lot humble, and to show, to consider others, put others in front of us and sort of things. So it's difficult for women to do that. So by actually bringing this up, what I'm helping you understand, or I'm hoping to help you understand, is minimizing and discounters and adjusting to other people are great, but ask yourself, how often am I doing that? And if I'm doing that a little too much. Okay, again, frequently apologetic, so I'm saying sorry or being apologetic very often and asking that question, am I good enough? A lot of us, we don't put our work out there because we think we are not ready or our work is not ready or somebody else is better than us. I remember back in 2016, a very, very amazing female leader at Amazon. She was respected, loved by many, and she had these direct reports who loved her. She actually did not go for a role that was open, a higher up role, because she felt she was not ready enough. She actually came and told me, I didn't take that, and I feel stupid. I didn't do that. So we do that to ourselves, and again, I just want to like shine light on that aspect. Now, again, here I'm not being judgmental. Please don't get me wrong. This is no space for judgment or me criticizing you or myself. This is just showing ourselves tough love, because we need that. We need to understand our own patterns and help ourselves get out of that. So I'm saying this with a lot of love and no judgment. Feel free to comment or share questions, and we'll come to that at the end. So what are some of the typical thought patterns that Tina might be going through in her typical workday? Am I good enough? So when for example, you might be in a busy conference call. So let's take the example of a physical meeting room where there are several stakeholders, senior stakeholders sitting around, and Tina is sitting in the corner. You could imagine yourself there, and there are these important strategy stuff being talked about, numbers being thrown around, discussions happening, and Tina is sitting there and waiting for her turn. And she has a point. She knows it's important, but a voice in her head says, maybe that's not good enough. Maybe you might sound a little stupid. Maybe that might not be well thought of. You're not ready enough. So then Tina sits back. Tina doesn't say anything, or maybe she says something very quickly and then shuts up. She doesn't make her point visibly enough. Another thing that might be going through her mind is, is it shameless to talk about myself when it comes to, for example, if there is a big meeting and people are talking about the achievements, their team or themselves they have done, I've seen several women not talk about themselves because they think it's shameless to talk about themselves. Even yesterday, I had a conversation with a client. She's based in London, and she's being overwhelmed. She has a lot on her plate, and she's an ambitious female, and she's done great stuff in her career, and she's spread too thin. She's taken on too much, and she went into a conversation with her manager, and she ended up not talking about her workload or optimizing her workload because she thought that talking about herself is selfish. Now, in that conversation, what we did is reframe and say that you're not talking about just yourself, you're talking about the quality of the project as well. So there is no shame in talking about yourself. If you need help, you put your hand up, but you are also, look at the big picture. By helping yourself, you're helping the project, the team, the boss, the organization. So it is actually not shameless to talk about yourself or a point that you've come up with, because it will help the people in that meeting, in the organization, etc. You are talented women, and you have intelligence, you have experience, and your organization, your team needs to benefit from that. And for that to happen, you need to speak up. A lot of women also diminish themselves. We feel more comfortable saying we instead of I. Oh, we did this. Oh, it's not just me. It was the whole team. Of course, it is the case. But there are certain snippets of pieces of work where you have taken the front and you have delivered. There could be individual projects, but still women diminish themselves a lot. In a sense, they want to appear less arrogant. We want to appear less arrogant. We want everybody to like us. So we use a lot of we instead of I. But at the end, whenever the performance review comes up, what did Tina do? That comes up. Another one is, if I do a great job, people should notice. That's sadly not the case. And, think about ourselves. All of us, for most part of the day, we think about ourselves. We are too busy thinking about ourselves, our good things, our bad things, our mistakes, our ambitions, our, whatever is going on in our lives. We don't really have time to think about other people, or we are not sitting around waiting to see what other people are doing. So if we want our job to be noticed, we can't expect our boss or the boss's boss or the colleague from another department to really notice us. The best way to make sure that our work gets noticed is by giving it visibility. Now, what I want to bring to attention what her boss thinks. What could be going on in her boss's mind? You know, once we are doing these kind of things, once Tina is doing these kind of things, or pulling herself back from expressing herself. Let's say it's a performance review or a one-to-one where the boss is talking about the performance. The boss is thinking, so what exactly did she achieve? I don't remember. I don't really remember. Yeah, that's flaky. I don't remember. Tina is putting forward something, but she's not being, forceful enough or being, clear enough of what she's been doing. So that memory, the boss's memory is a little weak as well. Probably she's not ready or available. She's not been talking about herself. Probably Tina's not yet ready for the promotion. And she's also not been asking. Probably she's not ready and probably she's not available. She has other priorities, that sort of thing. I don't see leadership potential. That's another thing the boss could think, because a leader is expected to be expressive, is expected to talk about strategies, talk about the next steps, talk about themselves. So I don't see the leadership potential. I don't see Tina stretching out and reaching out to other teams and networking, or really putting out projects that are really impactful for the company. So probably there is no leadership potential, not yet. Probably she's happy where she is. A lot of people are happy where they are, which is actually, taking a step back, great. But if you have the drive, the hunger, if you're frustrated that you're not moving ahead, then you need to take charge. So giving the impression that probably, having the boss have the impression that probably she's not happy, she's happy with where she is, and we don't need to progress her career, is actually sending the wrong signal. Uma, I'm not seeing any chats. If there are questions, just let me know.
There are questions, Meera, but probably we could come to them at the end, like you said.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. So again, I wanted to really bring to your mind and attention. If you don't value achievements, if you don't shine light on the brilliant work, the amazing, talented work you've done, why should anybody else? Because everybody else is busy minding their own fault. So please shine light on your achievements, and that's really important. So inhabit your space, inhabit the space you're given. For example, if you're given a role or a project, take control, take charge, and talk about it. Show your passion. You're obviously passionate about the work you do. So show the passion in the course of the project and when you deliver the project as well. Just say thank you. Don't use minimizers. Like I said, oh, it was the whole team. It was not me. I only did this part. I only just told the team what to do. They did everything. It's not much. Don't talk about it. Don't do that. Say thank you. Don't stop there. Don't say thank you, but it was nothing. Just say thank you and stop. End of story. Thank you. Affirm your achievements. That's another exercise that I actually do with my clients. I make them, if for example, if they're going through an especially difficult period of self-crisis or something, I actually make them look back at previous achievements, write them down, and have affirmations like, I'm enough, or I'm talented, I've achieved wonderful projects, I've delivered wonderful projects, I've achieved great things. Affirm your achievements to yourself every single day, as often as possible, especially if you're going through a personal crisis. Put it on the mirror in the bathroom. Put it by your bedside stand, wherever. And if you have a language which is difficult for others to read, for example, an African language, nobody else knows how to read, write it somewhere that others can read. And if you don't really care, write it in English, write it in whichever language. But the point is, affirm to yourself, gain from that positivity. That will help you affirm, once you do that to yourself, to the external world. Again, this is a muscle. Like I said, once you acknowledge certain traits in yourself, you can start changing for the better. And it's like building a muscle. When you go to the gym for the first time, you might be able to lift, like, let's say, 2 kilogram weight. The next, after a month, probably 5 kilograms. Another 3 months, 50 kilograms. Who knows? So building that visibility muscle, confidence muscle, talking about yourself, etc., that personal brand, bringing it out, it's just like muscle building. Do it once, do it regularly, do it consistently. So that's Tina. What I want her to go, think more often is, I'm good enough. I'm actually great. It's important for me to talk about my contributions because they matter to me and my organization. It makes an impact, positive impact. So that was a slide. Those were the muscles. I was trying to show some muscles there. Next is the disease to please. So how many of us, or how many of us have seen ourselves in the position where somebody is asking us to do something? Can you just do this? Can you do that? Probably it's a coworker, it's a peer, it's a subordinate, it's a manager, it's a manager's manager, and you're already overwhelmed, and you take it on because you don't want to appear arrogant, you don't want to be disliked, you don't want to be thought of as incompetent or uncaring or whatever else, right? And a lot of my female clients come to me saying that, I'm spread too thin, there is too much going on, I don't have time for my family, I don't have time to do my projects. I could have long-term, short-term projects. The short-term projects get done pretty well, but the long-term projects sometimes suffer in quality because I've taken on too much. Now, there could be a lot of reasons why people take on too much. And of course, due to the limited time, I'm only going to one such area, especially for women leaders. It is the disease to please. Because we, like I said, we don't want to be disliked. We want to be appearing as caring and competent, etc. And here's what I want to say. What got you here will not get you there. There is the further ranks of your career ladder. What got you here so far was your caring, compassionate, all pleasing character, and which are great traits to have, don't get me wrong. But again, everything in balance. And even organizations sort of shepherd us, especially women, into wanting us to be in more, pleasing manner or, accommodative manner, etc. But as a leader, as you grow further as a leader, what are those qualities that are required in a leader? The ability to look at other people, understand their strengths, and delegate, right? So the people who have a disease to please, for instance, do not delegate that effectively because they don't want to burden others. They might as well burden themselves rather than burden others. So they keep piling onto their plate more. The plate is overburdened, and finally they collapse. So organizations are also guilty of really expecting this of women, especially in the first few years, but it's up to us really to draw the boundaries. Yeah, so this is driven by fear of judgment, gossip, and dislike. Spread too thin, feel like you're always on a treadmill, which is getting faster and faster and faster, and causing a lot of stress, lack of quality. Yeah, difficulty delegating. So here's what some of the things you can do. Like I said, draw boundaries. I know it's easier said than done, drawing boundaries, having honest conversations, saying no. What I'm encouraging you, I'm not telling you to go and say no to everything, but probably take a step back. If you're going through a very overwhelming time, take a step back, look at the bigger picture. What do you want in your life? Time with family, a few projects at work that you really need to do. So it makes a difference to your organization and your career and to yourself. Are you doing those with qualities? If not, what needs to be left out? Have that honest conversation with your boss. Talk about improving the quality of projects by delegating some, or actually, putting some projects in the back. So be wise about what you say no and yes to. Understand the costs. I told you about the costs, right? The stress, the overwhelm, spreading too thin, and being seen as somebody who cannot say, who is not assertive. There are obviously upsides to this caring behavior as a leader, of course. That is why balance becomes important. Balancing the behavior becomes important. As a leader, empathy is a great quality to have, and women are naturally born with it. So don't let go of this character or quality. Just understand and have it in balance. Third and last one is perfectionism. So again, a lot of us have this, I'm not ready enough, or my project is not ready enough. Like this little girl in the picture, she's trying to draw a house with a tree and a human being and a sun. And she says, the sun is not yellow enough. She striked it off. and the tree is too big for the house, or the stick person is not good enough. So she's continuously drawing and redrawing and redrawing, taking up a lot of her bandwidth, taking up a lot of her time, keeping her from playing with her friends or whatever else is fun or interesting for her to do in her life. So what does perfectionism do in our work? So again, the scenario could be many. A common scenario, like I said, it could be the project or the project report or the project review or whatever I'm working on is not ready enough. I need to spend after hours, after work, and finish that presentation, or actually have a little less sleep tonight and finish that project, the report, and that sort of thing. And this could be an ongoing habit. I'm guilty of that. I've done that as well. I've had 6 a.m.s and 1 a.m.s of tweaking my presentations. And actually, to be honest, I almost went into perfectionism, into creating this particular slide because it wasn't round enough. But then I said, not doing that. It's got to be whatever it is, the way it is. So anyway, perfectionism. What does perfectionism feed? Procrastination. So when you don't feel ready enough, you procrastinate. You wait for the next week or the next time. I won't speak about my achievements because compared to her or him, it's not great enough. So I'll wait till my next achievement to talk about it. Self-criticism. So procrastination. We procrastinate and we say, not good enough, not been there yet. I don't know whether I'll ever be ready. What's going to happen? Probably I'm not smart enough. It feeds that space, feeds that sort of self-criticism. Could go into anxiety, bad feelings, or even depression, feeling so bad about yourself, and a complete erosion of self-confidence. Which feeds more fears? Which feeds the more, the drive for perfectionism? So again, I'm not asking you to do a sloppy job or, be half-assed about what you do, but it is again about balance. When you start feeling overwhelmed, and ask yourself, am I really struggling for perfectionism? Is this good to go? Do I have to really wait further, etc.? So the cost of perfectionism, of course, is there is a lot of stress, physical, mental, emotional breakdown. You take failures deeply to your heart, right? Because that then starts affecting your confidence, and it's a self-perpetuating cycle. Uses a lot of bandwidth, like I said, leaving no time for relationship building. To grow into an executive career, relationships, network is important. I've seen a lot of women say, tell me, I have not taken up I have a mentor, but I don't meet him so often because there's so much work, I don't get to meet him or her. I have a coach, but we don't meet that regularly anymore. I've not talked to her actually in 2 months. So, or, there is this other department head I wanted to have a, time with, and my project came in, I couldn't meet him, etc., etc. So in short, you leave no time for relationship building, which is actually the fodder for the next steps in your career ladder. Having those sponsors and mentors that will guide the way, or network. When you set high standards for yourself, you reflect that in your external environment. You set high standards for others. For example, if there are people reporting to you, you set very high standards for them, and you almost become a Godzilla for them. They're nervous and stressed around you, and you don't get the best quality work out of them. I've been that in my early years of leadership. I had done that, and I quickly got the feedback that, Meera, you're not doing well. So I had the good fortune of somebody mentoring me into, more appropriate behavior. So yes, so setting high standards for you is also, is a double-edged sword. Again, when it comes to the leadership succession planning or, leadership growth, you will be criticized for being too cautious. Leaders are also expected to balance risk-taking with quality. So when you're being too overly cautious and always double thinking or double checking yourself, that means you are not progressing fast enough with your decisions or projects, etc. And you'll be criticized for being too cautious. So what can we do about that? Acknowledge if you have this trait in yourself. Probably it comes through in feedback reviews, or you know it yourself. And then, like I said, take a step back. In most of life's conundrums or chaotic situations, what really helps is when you take a step back, take some time off, take a step back and see what's happening in my life. Am I being too perfectionistic? Or, am I being too perfectionist? I don't remember the word. Okay, you know what I mean. So create more realistic expectations. Rope in your manager or rope in a coach or a mentor who can help you with that if you need it, right? Challenge your inner critic. Most of the times it is our own inner critic that is telling us we are not good enough, we have not done it well enough, this is not perfect enough, this is going to be ridiculed, you're going to appear silly, etc. It's actually your own inner critic which lies inside your head and talks to you all the time. So identify who that is and tell them, is that true? Not sure. Last month what I achieved doesn't really tally with your story, inner critic. So challenge your inner critic. Replace that with the positive affirmations that I said. Talk to yourself about the great stuff you've achieved. Perfection, or greatness is not a one-way street. You will go to excellence. Excellence is not a single, straight line. You actually will fumble and mumble and fall down and get up and make mistakes. And that is, a great leader carries those scar marks of failures as well, where it's in taking those mistakes and learning from your failures and admitting those failures that sometimes that makes the mark of a great leader. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of failing, because probably the failure will not happen. And even if it happens, it will not be in the magnitude that you're fearing. And even if it happens, if you admit to your learnings and admit to a better course of action next time, the people around you will be more appreciative. And that is the mark of a true leader. And I know that you have it in you. So don't kill yourself by being perfectionist. Yeah, this is just a funny image I saw. I thought it would be nice to add. So somebody is happy with a sloppy house. Somebody is not happy with the actually better looking house picture. So yeah, see where your balance lies. So I want to wrap up now and loop back to the main topic. I hope in some sense I helped you appreciate the fact that leadership is an inner game, or succeeding in your executive career is an inner game first. And once you master those or progress or strengthen your muscles in that area, you will actually make the external world a better place to be, more conducive to your growth. Because I think there is nothing more emphatic than a powerful, confident woman who talks about herself with, talks about the facts, talks about what she's achieved, and talks about her team with pride, talks about what difference she's made. And those are the women I want to see more and more, because there is no glory in playing small. There is no glory in waiting for the next best moment. Yes, so let me see if actually, it's been a monologue, so I would love to hear from you. What is your one key takeaway? What's the one thing, one realization, one action you will do as a result of this webinar, our short time together today? Could you please put that in the chat section? And the last bit from me is further resources. Along with Uma and Mahua, what I've done is I've conceptualized business communication and storytelling. It's a learning studio. It's going to be held in September. It's a 2-hour workshop sort of thing, where we will talk more about how you can communicate about yourself, your work, the work that you do in the business context, so that, and using the tools of storytelling. So I'll give you the framework of storytelling, but also help you understand how to craft your communication, whether it's an email, whether it's you introducing yourself to somebody, or whether you're making a presentation, whether it's a performance review negotiation. How do you actually present yourself and your work in a convincing way? And how can you leverage storytelling so the other person or people in front, sitting across you or in that conversation are impressed by the work you do? You put the right language across, appear authentic and capable. So that's my next offering. It's in September. I will share the link in a minute here. And after that, we're also conceptualizing a 6-week course on executive leadership for women. So basically, whatever I've said in this webinar, in a more detailed, deep, and taking time, and in an interactive format, That's what, that's in the works. We have not finalized the details yet. And as soon as it's there, you'll see it on the site. So I guess that's it from me. You can contact me. I would love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn because that's where I hang out all the time. But feel free to send me an email or check out my website as well. That's it. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great. Thanks so much, Meera. That was extremely interesting. And I think a lot of people could relate to it. And judging by the chat messages and the questions, I think it was amazing. I'd request everyone, I've just shared and I'm going to share it again. There is a feedback form, a very quick form that will take you less than a minute. If you could go ahead and fill in the feedback, please, then we'll get started with Q&A. I will also share here a link to the next session that Meera is going to run for us. This is a 2-hour workshop. I'm just sharing the link here. It is on the 18th of September. I've just shared the link in the chat window. Do check it out and sign up. It's a session on another extremely interesting topic. All of you would have heard about the power of business storytelling. And this session is all about helping you craft that story, how to tell a great story. So I think that will be very interesting. So do check it out. And the 3-month workshop that Meera just spoke about, we will plan that over the next couple of weeks, and that will also be up on our platform very soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope all of you have started filling in the feedback. Maybe Meera, we can get started with the Q&A. I can read out the questions in the order that they came in. Okay, just scrolling. Yeah, so this is a question from Prajita. She says, if you talk about yourself and what you've achieved, isn't it like bragging? And a lot of men do that and we don't like it. So
yeah, I know. I get the point. I get the question. It's a very common question. Thank you, Uma, for reading that out for me. And thank you, Aparajita, for asking. And I'm sure a lot of people have this in their minds. So,
Meera, before you start, the next question also is related. So maybe you can answer both. This is from Jacqueline Mayana from Kenya. She says, is it advisable to speak about your achievements and innovations all the time or just during performance appraisals?
Okay. Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, so I'll do my best to answer both of the questions at one go. Yeah, so Aparajita, bragging, yes, it does sound like bragging, and we have so many cases of men actually over talking about their achievements, and it feels very caustic and it's very yuck and it's very, you don't want to do that. It's very, sounds silly, but there are a lot of men and women who do it tastefully as well. So my take on that is it's not an either or, it's not a black and white, right? So if talking about myself is bragging, don't label it that way. Just honestly talking about what you have achieved, especially in situations where there is that forum to highlight a project's project success or performance review or whatever. Talk about it, right? Don't hold back then, and you can be authentic and talk without bragging. So don't be in a black and white scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So here's another question from Smita. How do you acknowledge a compliment when it is directed at you, but the success was a result of group effort?
Okay, cool. Thanks for that. But I just wanted to complete Jacqueline's, just finish.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So Jacqueline, I would say that you don't have to talk about it all the time, right? But very often we all get forums. For example, if it's a bigger team meeting, or of course performance appraisals, there are several events that happen during a course of a month, right? Larger, smaller gatherings. I'm not asking you to do that every day or every week, but whenever these things happen, or your manager, you have your one-to-one, you can actually say that, what, this is what we achieved. This is what I achieved. This is what I managed to finish. And this is what my team as well did. This is how I mentored my team to do that. So you can talk about the I and the we. So I'm sort of transitioning into the next question. It's like, who was that? Uma, who raised that question?
Smita.
How do we acknowledge a compliment when it's directed at you, but the success is a result of group effort? So yeah, just be, just be genuinely humble, genuinely happy at that compliment and say, thank you very much. And if there is, let's say, compliments to be shared to a larger group, of course, say that, this team did a wonderful job. I just want to make sure that we acknowledge them as well. So if they have done it, of course, talk about them. But a lot of times what happens is we women especially are so quick into diverting attention. Oh, no, that's not me, that's them. We don't take that 2 seconds to think, oh, actually I did something. So just think about that, right? You must have done something. So say thank you for that and say, I also want to acknowledge the X and X, Y, and is it. Does that make sense? Okay.
In fact, I think that answers Sonia's question also. She had a similar question which said, how do you acknowledge your team's effort and pull them up yourself?
Right.
Yeah. That's great. Now we have Maninder. She says, can you share some examples of practical ways of building these habits? A colleague suggested sending an email every week to your boss, highlighting the week's highlights in a few bullet points to stay on top of mind. Is that a good idea or will it look unsolicited?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Maninder. I'm thinking as so give me a second. Different people consume information differently. So I don't find it bad in actually sending an email, sort of capturing the week's highlight, very crisp bullet points, and also balancing facts of the project and facts of you. So you can do that, and you can actually have a conversation with your boss and ask, is that too much? This is a format I'm planning to send you in. So it'll be, it'll be easy for you to see what's been going on. So actually play to their advantage as well. So sort of highlight the advantage for the boss as well. So he or she actually will have a quick snapshot of an email. So would that be something you appreciate? If not, do you want me to bring, these points in a one-to-one and talk about it? So different people consume information differently, but always ask your boss or whoever it is, how do you want to consume that information? Yeah, I hope I covered that point. If you have more questions, please ask if I didn't cover anything specifically.
Okay, so we have another one from Jacqueline, and Aprajita also mentioned the same points. This is, sometimes your superiors might feel threatened of you growing up and taking their position. So how do you handle such a situation? And in fact, this could make the entire environment toxic. So how do you manage this?
Okay, and that is actually the topic of a larger discussion. This, this actually works from, I'm trying to make sure that I say the right points, because there's so much to be talked in this context. It's about what are our personal intentions, about giving respect to your boss and actually not threatening them. So that goes into the topic of business communication, which we will cover in the session that is coming in September. That is a fine act of balancing your expertise and making your boss feel respected. So probably you can give me a scenario, Aparajita, where, or whoever has asked this, where you feel your boss is threatened, because then my answer will be more specific. So feel free to ask in the link Uma has said. But in short, it's about making sure you respect your boss and saying it in a way that they see the advantage as well, and sharing the limelight as well in that sense, and not sort of threatening them and saying that, I've done everything, you're nothing. So it's building that trust and relationship with your boss over a period of time as well, boss or whoever it is that you're thinking about. So I need a bit more specifics to be able to answer this particular question, but I hope it was helpful.
We have one from Aditi. She says, how do you effectively network your way to be considered for senior roles? Is it okay if we just talk about our aspirations openly with our managers?
Yeah, again, networking is a big topic. So let me try and make it concise. So definitely talk about your aspirations to your manager. But a lot of times what I see is just talking about what I want, what are my problems, is not going to make the cut. Show your big picture. How would promoting you be beneficial for the organization or for your boss, right? Because he or she is going to be your first step into getting that visibility for promotion. So make it juicy for them, juicy for the organization to promote you. So when you want to talk about promotion, talk about your vision for the team, vision for the organization, how your skills will actually complement that growth for the organization. So put it in so many words and make it about you, but not just about you. And of course, have sponsors and mentors within the organization from whom you can learn from, and they know of your aspirations, and they can look out for you. And mentors don't need to be only within the organization. You can look within the industry as well. So you spread your wings wider.
Okay, thanks, Meera. A couple of people seem to be leaving. There is just one point Mahua and I wanted to mention to you all today. Mahua will in fact keep sharing the links for Meera's session and for the Learning Corner group, so we can continue to interact with Meera. In fact, just in the past couple of days, we managed to finalize one extremely personalized service offering that might be applicable to a lot of you, especially those of you in India. Philosophically and for a very long time historically, you've seen that recruitment is something that is focused on organizations, right? So if an organization says, I want 20 people with a particular skill set or 200 people, then recruiters go and fulfill that requirement and look for candidates matching it. So we are trying to change that and shift that entire paradigm and put the person at the core and say, what do I as an individual want in terms of my next job or role, and make the entire recruitment process personalized. So this is something that I don't think has been tried anywhere across countries in recent times. So we are very excited to launch this and wanted to let this particular group know. If any of y'all, especially in the current environment, are looking for a change in your job, do feel free to ping us. Mahua will share an email ID on the chat window. And we have started doing personalized recruitment. So there will be a recruitment consultation, and we start looking for opportunities for you in the industries that you desire. So just wanted to mention that. Any final comments, Meera, and we'll stay in touch with the group on the group with everyone here.
Yeah, I mean, I am really interested in furthering the conversation in the Learning Corner. So I would be very happy if you have any further questions, just pop them in there and to continue our interaction. And yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I want to know more of you, and it's been great. That's it from me. Thank you, Uma and Mahua, for this opportunity as well. It's been a pleasure.
It's great having you here, Meera, and we are looking forward to the session in September. Do note, everyone, that's a smaller group. We have a limit of taking only 25 people because it will be a very hands-on sort of a workshop. So do go ahead and register as soon as you can before seats fill up. We all know Meera is very famous. People have joined us from 8 different countries. So thanks a lot, Meera. Amazing session, very energetic, and so much interaction from people on the group. It was lovely having you here. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.